In a frozen New York alley where the wind bites deeper than despair, 16-year-old Lila Hart, shivering, abandoned, clutching a tattered blanket, locks eyes with a scarred German shepherd, his ribs jagged beneath frost-caked fur. Two lost souls, discarded by a city that devours the weak, forge an unbreakable bond when she trades her last warmth for his survival. Together they'll face thugs' fists, a past that hunts with teeth, and a love so fierce it defies courtroom chains, until the day she scatters his ashes into a dawn chorus of howls, her heart shattered yet whole. From the icy shadows to a sanctuary born of his spirit, this is their fight, their howl, their triumph. Will you hear it through to the end? New York's winter is a beast, its icy claws raking 16-year-old Lila Hart as she cowers beneath a torn awning on a forsaken street. Snowflakes sting her chapped cheeks and tangle in her matted brown hair, the wind slicing through her threadbare coat like a blade. Her fingers, numb and cracked, clutch her last treasure, a moth-eaten blanket she calls Bear, its frayed edges her only tether to a mother long gone. Across the street, a flickering street lamp casts jagged shadows over a dumpster where a German shepherd huddles, his ribs sharp beneath frost-crusted fur. His amber eyes glint through the storm, hollow with hunger, and a faint whimper escapes his throat, a sound that hooks into Lila's chest like barbed wire. She stares, her breath fogging in the air, as the city roars around them, horns blaring, boots stomping, a million lives that don't see the forgotten. The dog's gaze locks with hers, raw and unguarded, mirroring her own exhaustion. He's like me, she thinks, her heart thudding against her ribs. Two souls discarded, shivering in the same cruel night. She shifts, the cold pavement biting through her jeans, and wonders if either of them will survive till dawn. Lila's hands tremble as she grips Bear, its familiar weight her shield against the freeze creeping into her bones. "I'll die without this," her mind screams, panic clawing up her throat as the wind howls louder. But the dog's whine cuts deeper, a sound so broken it drowns out her own fear. She crawls toward him, knees scraping the icy ground, and his ears twitch as she nears, wary but not fleeing. Up close, his fur is matted with grime, his breath shallow puffs of mist. She hesitates, then peels Bear from her shoulders, the frigid air hitting her like a punch. Draping the blanket over his shuddering frame, she tucks it around his bony sides, her fingers brushing his cold nose. He lifts his head, those amber eyes searching hers, galaxies of pain swirling within them. Then, slowly, he nudges her hand with his snout, a tentative press that sends a jolt of warmth through her, brighter than any fire she's lost. He didn't run, she marvels, her chest aching with something new. For the first time in months, she isn't alone. By morning, the snow has softened to a gray slush, and the dog hasn't left her side. Lila names him Shadow, inspired by the way he trails her through the streets, silent, a dark silhouette against the city's chaos. His ears flick at every sound, a car horn, a shouted curse, the clatter of a dropped bottle. They scavenge together, her digging through trash for scraps, him sniffing the air like he's mapping their world. A shopkeeper spots them near his stoop and charges out, broom raised, bellowing, "Get lost, mutt!" Lila stumbles back, but Shadow steps forward, planting himself between her and the man. A growl rumbles from his chest, low and fierce, his hackles rising like a storm cloud. The shopkeeper freezes, then retreats, muttering curses. Lila's breath catches. No one's protected me since Mom, and her throat tightens as she kneels beside him, stroking his head. Good boy, she whispers, her voice cracking. Shadow's tail thumps once, a quiet vow in the muck of the alley. Hunger gnaws at Lila's stomach as she stands on a subway platform, the rumble of trains shaking the tiles beneath her boots. Desperation drives her to sing, her voice raw and trembling, a lullaby her mother once hummed, now fractured by cold and grief. Shadow sits tall beside her, his ears perked, his gaze sweeping the crowd like a sentinel. A businessman in a pinstripe suit pauses, his eyes softening at the dog, before tossing a handful of coins into Lila's cup. It's because of him, she realizes, glancing at Shadow's proud stance. By afternoon, the coins clink heavier, and she catches a whiff of jasmine on the wind. A woman in a wool coat lingers near a pillar, her face half hidden in shadow, watching them. Lila's pulse quickens. Danger or hope, she can't tell, but the scent lingers, warm and steady, like a promise she's forgotten how to trust. Shadow's nose twitches, but he doesn't growl. She sings louder, her voice steadying, falls heavy, and trouble finds them in a narrow alley reeking of stale beer and rot. 3 thugs block their path, leather jackets gleaming under a busted streetlight, their grins sharp as knives. "Hand over the cash, kid," one sneers, cracking his knuckles. Lila clutches the coins tight, but Shadow's snarl splits the air, a sound so primal it raises the hairs on her neck. The men lunge and chaos explodes, fists swing, boots thud, and Shadow's jaws clamp onto a wrist with a sickening crunch. He's a blur of teeth and fury, taking a kick to his flank that makes him yelp. Blood stains his fur, red against gray, and Lila's scream rips free. "Run!" But he doesn't. He fights until the men scatter, cursing into the dark. Lila drops beside him, pressing her scarf to his wound, her hands shaking as blood seeps through. His tongue flicks her wrist, weak but warm. "I'd die for you." Tears blur her vision as she whispers, "Don't you dare." A figure emerges from the shadows as Lila cradles Shadow, her scarf now a sodden rag. Eleanor Whitmore steps into the dim light, her wool coat pristine against the alley's filth. Her gloved hand hovers over Shadow's head, and something flickers in her gray eyes. Recognition, sharp and sudden. "This dog, he's trained," she says, her voice low, tinged with awe. Lila tightens her grip on him, his blood sticky on her fingers. "He's mine," she snaps, defiance masking her fear. Eleanor kneels unfazed, her gaze softening as she studies them both. "I know," she murmurs, pulling a card from her pocket with trembling fingers. "But he's hurt. Let me help both of you." Lila stares at the card, Whitmore K-9 Academy, and then at Shadow's labored breathing. The jasmine scent wraps around her again, coaxing her trust. "What choice do I have?" she thinks, nodding once. The Lexus hums beneath Lila as she sits rigid in the back seat, Shadow's head heavy on her lap. Eleanor drives in silence, the city blurring past tinted windows, skyscrapers giving way to skeletal trees. Lila's fingers knot in Shadow's fur, expecting a trap, a shelter cage, or worse. People don't help for free. Her mind hisses, memories of betrayal stinging fresh. But Shadow's calm unnerves her. He pants softly, trusting this stranger when Lila can't. The car slows before iron gates that creak open, revealing a sprawling manor flanked by a K-9 training facility. kennels, fields, a world she doesn't know. Eleanor glances back, her voice gentle. This isn't a shelter, it's a second chance. Lila's chest tightens, hope feels like a bruise, but Shadow's tail thumps weakly against her leg. Maybe he's right, she thinks, stepping into the unknown. Warm water steams in a steel tub as Lila kneels beside Shadow, a sponge in her shaking hand. She scrubs gently, peeling away layers of grime to reveal fur the color of storm clouds, beautiful despite the scars. His whimper when she brushes a jagged mark on his hip pierces her, and tears spill hot down her cheeks. Who did this to you? She wonders, her sobs echoing off the tiles. Eleanor joins her, kneeling with a vet kit, her voice steady but soft. Someone used him for fighting. Those scars, they're old wounds. Lila's nails dig into her palms, rage boiling up like bile. I'll kill them, she thinks, imagining faceless monsters who broke him. Shadow nudges her arm, his wet nose cool against her skin, grounding her. Eleanor stitches his flank in silence, and Lila whispers, "You're safe now," to both of them. Lila bolts upright in a guest room, her scream tearing through the dark, nightmares of frozen alleys clawing her awake. The bed's softness feels wrong, suffocating, a trap she doesn't deserve. Her chest heaves as she scans the shadows, until Shadow's weight settles against her legs. He'd climbed onto the mattress, his fur warm and solid, anchoring her to this strange new present. His tongue laps at her tears, slow and deliberate, his amber eyes glowing in the moonlight. I'm here. You're safe. She buries her face in his neck, breathing in wet dog and soap, her heartbeat slowing. Downstairs, Eleanor pauses at the sound, her own scars, grief for a lost son, aching in her chest. She doesn't knock, just listens, knowing the girl needs time. Lila whispers, "Don't leave me," and Shadow's tail thumps once. Eleanor's office smells of leather and coffee as she slides a file across the desk. His real name was Ajax, she says, her voice heavy. A police K9, stolen during a raid 2 years ago. Lila's heart plummets, her fingers tightening on Shadow's collar as she reads. Training logs, commendations, a photo of him in a harness beside a stern-faced handler. He had a life before me, she thinks, dread coiling in her gut. Someone could take him back. Shadow nuzzles her hand, oblivious to the papers, his tail wagging like a metronome. You're my girl, he seems to say, pressing closer. Eleanor watches them, her eyes soft. He chose you, Lila. Names don't change that, but sure, Lila, and scratches his ears. Shadow's better anyway. The training field smells of grass and sweat as Lila tosses a locket, stolen from her pocket by a punk kid, onto a dummy. Shadow's ears prick, his body tensing like a coiled spring. Find it, she says, voice firm despite her nerves. He bolts, nose to the ground, weaving through obstacles with a grace she's never seen. Within seconds, he's back, the locket dangling from his jaws, his eyes bright with triumph. Lila laughs, a sound raw and rare, and takes it from him, her fingers brushing his muzzle. Good boy, she whispers, pride swelling in her chest. Eleanor nods from the sidelines, scribbling notes. His training's still in there, she says. Lila kneels, hugging Shadow tight. You're more than they made you, she thinks, feeling his heartbeat against hers. A crash jolts Lila awake one midnight, the manor's silence shattered. Shadow's growl vibrates through the floor as he leaps from the bed, hackles up, ears pinned back. She stumbles after him, heart pounding, as he races downstairs to the front gate. Through the window she sees a man, tall, scarred, a flashlight in hand, prying at the lock. Shadow barrels outside, a blur of teeth and fury, tackling the intruder to the ground. The man yells, dropping a knife that glints in the moonlight, and scrambles away as Eleanor rushes out with a phone. "He's gone," she says, breathless, but Lila's eyes are on Shadow's bloodied paw. "From his past," Eleanor guesses, her face grim. Lila kneels, trembling. "You're mine now," she tells him, fierce and final. Lila's rage erupts one gray afternoon, a scream tearing from her as she hurls a lamp against the guest room wall. Glass shatters, books topple. She doesn't belong here, in this soft place with its warm meals and pitying eyes. "I'm not your charity case," she yells at no one, kicking the bed frame until her toes ache. Shadow watches, then moves, herding her into a corner with gentle nudges, his body a barrier against her chaos. She swings at him, fists wild, but he ducks, licking her knuckles until her strength crumbles. She collapses, sobbing into his fur, his steady breathing her lifeline. Eleanor finds them like that, saying nothing, just leaving a blanket. "I don't deserve this," Lila thinks, but Shadow disagrees, pressing closer. A courtroom looms, sterile and cold, as Shadow's former handler, a burly man named Graves, demands his property back. "Ajax is mine," he growls, medals pinned to his chest. Lila's hands shake as she grips the stand, her voice breaking. "He chose me. You lost him, and I found him." Shadow sits beside her, ears back, a whine escaping as Graves glares. The judge's gavel falls, Shadow stays with Lila, and her outburst goes viral. A girl and her dog against the world. Outside, reporters swarm, but she buries her face in Shadow's fur, whispering, "We won." His tail wags, a victory flag. Eleanor smiles faintly. "You fought for him," she says. Lila nods, fierce. "Always will." Years pass, and Lila stands in the training field, a rescue pup at her feet, a scruffy mutt she's teaching to sit. Shadow watches from the grass, his muzzle graying, his eyes still sharp with pride. Her own scars, hunger, fear, have faded, softened by time and this place. She tosses a ball, and the pup stumbles after it, while Shadow's tail thumps approval. "You taught me this," she tells him, scratching his ears. Eleanor joins them, her limp more pronounced now, and hands Lila a certificate. K9 trainer. "You're good at this," she says. Lila looks at Shadow, her anchor, and smiles. "Because of you," she thinks, the wind carrying her gratitude. Shadow's breathing slows one spring morning, his body heavy in Lila's arms as dawn paints the sky gold. She cradles him on the manor's porch, bare draped over them both, her tears soaking his fur. "You saved me," she chokes out, stroking his ears as his eyes dim. He licks her hand once, weak but sure, then stills. Later, she scatters his ashes into the wind, a chorus of shelter dogs howling behind her, a farewell that shakes the earth. Eleanor stands silent, a hand on Lila's shoulder. "He's free," she says. Lila nods, her chest hollow but full, and whispers, "Run, Shadow." The wind carries him away, and she turns back to the dogs, her purpose now. Lila stands in the training field, the late summer sun baking the earth beneath her boots as 5 rescue dogs fidget before her, her first class. Their eyes dart, tails twitch, and her stomach knots with doubt. I can't do this, she thinks, her hands clammy around a leash. Shadow limps beside her, his joints stiff from age, but his presence steadies her like a heartbeat. She calls out commands, sit, her voice wobbling at first, then sharpening as Shadow sits too, a gray sentinel showing them how it's done. The dogs mimic him one by one, and a grin breaks across her face from the fence, her nod a quiet approval. You've got his gift, she says later, over lemonade that stings Lila's cracked lips. Shadow nudges her knee, his amber eyes dimming but proud. You taught me this, she thinks, resting her hand on his head, the breeze carrying the scent of grass and trust. Lila's memory flickers back to their first night in the manor, the walls too quiet, the air too clean. She'd lain awake, the guest room's softness a cage, her pulse racing with every creak. Shadow had paced the floor, his claws clicking on hardwood, then settled by the door, ears up, body tense, guarding her from ghosts she couldn't name. She'd slipped from the bed, knees brushing the rug, and curled beside him, her fingers tracing the scars on his flank. You don't have to, she'd whispered, her voice swallowed by the dark. But he'd stayed, his warmth seeping into her, his breath a rhythm that lulled her to sleep. Now, years later, she blinks back tears at the memory, watching him doze on the porch. You always did, she thinks, gratitude a lump in her throat. Eleanor sits Lila down one rainy evening, the patter on the manor's roof a soft drumbeat as thunder rumbles outside. A photo trembles in her hands, a boy, maybe 10, grinning beside a shaggy mutt. My son, Daniel, she says, her voice cracking like dry wood, loved dogs more than anything, died in a car wreck 5 years ago. Lila stares, the words sinking in heavy as the rain. Eleanor's gray eyes meet hers, glistening. You and Shadow, you're my second chance too. Lila's chest tightens. She's broken like me. And she reaches for Eleanor's hand, a rare touch that doesn't make her flinch. Shadow snores by the fireplace, oblivious, his presence stitching their wounds together. He brought us here, Lila murmurs, and Eleanor nods, a tear slipping free. A walk in the woods turns brutal when a pit bull, unleashed, wild-eyed, charges from the underbrush, its owner shouting uselessly behind. Lila freezes, the leash slipping in her sweaty grip, but Shadow moves, slow, arthritic, yet fierce. His snarl rips through the air as he lunges, teeth bared, slamming into the dog's side. They tumble, a chaos of fur and growls, until the pit bull yelps and retreats, blood on its ear. Shadow staggers back, panting, a fresh cut above his eye. Lila drops beside him, her hands shaking as she presses her sleeve to the wound. You idiot, she chokes out, tears mixing with his blood. He licks her wrist, tail thumping once. I'd do it again. The owner stammers apologies, but Lila's glare silences him. I love you, she whispers into Shadow's ear, the words spilling free at last. Lila sits by Shadow's bed in the manor's kitchen, a blanket draped over his trembling frame as autumn chills the tiles. His breathing rasps, slower now, and her chest aches with every pause. She hums the lullaby from that subway platform, stronger now, unbroken, her voice weaving through the quiet. Shadow's ears twitch, his tail stirring faintly, a ghost of the wags she once knew. Eleanor leans in the doorway, her eyes soft, saying nothing. The melody fills the room, a thread tying their years together. alleys, fights, nights of shared warmth. When it ends, Shadow's eyes meet hers, cloudy but certain, and she smiles through tears. "You heard me then," she says, stroking his muzzle. "You hear me now," she thinks, the silence heavy with love. The vet's office smells of antiseptic and fear as Lila sits on the floor, Shadow's head in her lap. His fur is thin, his ribs sharp under her fingers, and the vet's words echo. Weeks, maybe days. She'd nodded, numb, but now panic claws her throat. That night she drags her mattress beside his bed in the kitchen, the hard wood cold against her spine. She sleeps there every night, waking to his whimpers, soothing him with whispered stories of their battles, thugs, storms, courtroom victories. "You're my hero," she tells him, her voice breaking as he nuzzles her hand, weaker each time. Eleanor brings broth he barely laps, her own grief a shadow in the room. "Don't go," Lila begs silently, counting his breaths in the dark. After Shadow's gone, Lila carves a memorial, a smooth stone etched with his paw print, planted in the training field. Her hands blister from the chisel, but she keeps going, sweat and tears streaking her face. The dogs watch, heads cocked as she kneels beside it, Bear draped over her shoulders. "I'll keep saving them," she vows, her voice steady despite the hollow in her chest. Eleanor helps her plant flowers around it, marigolds, bright as his eyes once were. A pup from her class, a scrappy terrier, bounds over, dropping a stick at the stone. Lila laughs, sharp and sudden, and picks it up. "He'd like that," she says, tossing it. The field hums with life, Shadow's legacy in every bark. The manor transforms under Lila's hands, its gates now open to strays and survivors, a sanctuary born from Shadow's howl. Firm, she trains dogs by day and sleeps with Bear at night, the blanket a bridge to him. The kennels overflow with wagging tails, each rescue a piece of his spirit. Eleanor limps beside her, gray hair wild in the wind, marveling at the girl who once flinched at touch. "This is yours now," she says, handing Lila the deed. Volunteers call her the dog whisperer, but Lila shakes her head. "It's him," she insists, glancing at the stone. A Malamute pup nudges her leg, and she smiles, bittersweet. "You're still here," she thinks, the air alive with his echo. Spring dawns golden, and Lila stands on the hill behind the sanctuary, Shadow's ashes cradled in her hands. She's 22 now, taller, her scars faded but her eyes still fierce. Bear hangs over her shoulders as she tips the urn, the wind catching the gray dust, swirling it skyward. Below, the sanctuary dogs howl, a wild, mournful chorus that shakes her bones. Eleanor stands back, her cane sinking into the earth, her smile quiet. "He's free," she says, and Lila nods, her throat tight. "Run, Shadow," she whispers, watching the ashes dance. The dogs' voices rise, a hymn to their guardian, and she turns back, boots crunching on gravel. She's a trainer, a survivor, his girl forever. The howl lingers, and she carries it forward.